Hey everyone, welcome back to 2D Intro Review. I'm Caleb.
I'm Hannah, and we are going to talk not a little bit,
we're just going to be talking
about Squid Game, because we finished it
like a week ago or so.
Yeah, it was like last weekend.
So we'll start off with a little bit of a non-spoiler review, so if you haven't seen it yet, don't worry, we'll warn you when we get into more details. So
it was pretty good.
Yeah, the question is it worth watching? Like, there's a lot of hype on the internet. Does it live up to it?
I think it
so.
does. Yeah. I mean, because I've seen, like, everybody was talking about it, and I was like, what is Squid Game? And, you know, I knew it was on Netflix. I actually didn't know it was, like, a scripted show. I thought it was, like
an actual, like reality show.
I thought it was, like a game show or something, where it was, like, almost like Wipeout, or, like, you know. And then I watched a 30-second clip, and I was like...
Yeah, because we saw, before I even saw any memes of it, really, like, the first thing I saw was just, it was trending on Netflix, and, like, we watched, the little, like, 30-second clip that we showed you, and we're like, huh, that looks kind of weird.
I was like...
And didn't really think anything of it until, like, a few days later, and all of a sudden, like, it was just everywhere. Like, all over social media, everyone was talking about it, and I was just like, that thing that we, like, passed up, like, a couple days ago?
Yeah.
And then we're like, well, all right, well, you know. Yeah. But it's a good show.
It's definitely worth it.
It's not family friendly, so...
Definitely do not watch this with children. Or adults if you're scared of...
But, it has an interesting premise and, good character arcs and, good storyline and, it pretty much has everything that you would want in a television show. And I thought it was, good.
Yeah, I thought it was good. I mean, it's not like some brilliant piece of cinema.
No, I don't even think it's the greatest thing that I watched on Netflix, like as a Netflix original, which I think it has become like the most watched Netflix original, on Netflix, which I'm a bigger fan of things like Stranger Things, and I'm not knocking Squid Games by any means. It's just personal preference. I happen to like other shows more than I like this one, but this show does hold up on its own, and it is a really great show to watch and really entertaining.
Yeah, so
like we watched through it in 2 days. Because, like that night we're like, okay, we're gonna watch one more, then we're gonna go to bed. Then we watched it, and we're like, okay, one more, then we're gonna go.
Like,
okay, one more.
Yeah, so we did. We watched it in 2 days. So it's definitely worth it. So if you haven't seen it and were wondering, check it out. Let us know what you guys thought, and then we're gonna start getting into some details.
So click away.
Yeah,
and then come back.
Yeah, save it and then come back.
Before we get into too much details, we did order...
Oh yeah, we are going to be playing a Squid Game, not the Squid Game itself, because after the rules being described twice during the show, I still have no idea how to play.
I understand a little bit more now. I feel like I would still need somebody who's more seasoned in playing to kind of help me through it, but I feel like I do understand the premise of the game a little bit better.
We just did a sour challenge. Is that hitting you now?
Yeah. But we're going to be doing the honeycomb one.
Oh, no, just kidding. Yeah, we are going to be doing like the honeycomb in the little. We got to like scrape and do all that. So we are going to do that. It's on its way. I could have just made it. There was like recipes everywhere on like how to make it, but that just seemed
we're just too lazy.
That just seemed like too much work. So I was like, I'm just going to order it.
The only downside is that we don't really feel comfortable taking the method that they used on the show.
Yeah, I'm not sure I feel good about tasting and like licking it and doing all that, because I'm like, I don't know where this came from. So, but anyway.
But I will have a lighter.
But so we are going to be doing that, so make sure you're on the lookout for that.
And then we're going to do the Bridge of Death.
Yep. We're going to do the tug of war, and we could do red light, green light.
Yeah.
I'm like, I saw you moving.
With just one person. Mm-hmm. Red light, green light.
Anyways, so let's get back into the show. It was hard to get into it first, just because like when you first turned it on, it was English dubs for us, and I was like, I don't know if I like this.
Having the mouth and the words not quite line up, and some of the voice actor doesn't, the person who did the main character, I'm not going to even try to say any names because I'm going to butcher them. But the main character, I feel like his voice actor was really good with that, but I feel like some of the other ones didn't quite match up, and, it was a little distracting in that sense. But that was ultimately what we chose, just because, a lot of people, went the
reading the
subtitles route, and we tried that too.
Yeah, I was like, let me try subtitles, and we did that for like 2 seconds, and I was like, No, I was like, I'm too I'm.
It's taking us out of the story by having to like.
I felt like I was too
read.
because I'm I know there's like a method to reading subtitles while watching a movie, so you're not like taking out people are like, oh, how to do that. I wasn't gonna watch it. Yeah, I wasn't gonna watch videos.
We just want to like relax.
We were already in it. Yeah, so we went back to the English dub, and honestly, that's the first time I've ever watched an English dub anything. Have watched things in subtitles, like I've seen. I think Crouching Tiger.
So I have a new respect for people for foreign countries who watch American-made movies and then they have to like watch the dub version of it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I have a newfound respect for them. Like you just have to kind of not look at their mouth and just kind of. Just try to focus on anything else.
Yeah, and, So, but all the voice actors, I think, did a pretty good job. There was one that I'm like, I would like to know what the actress's real voice sounds like, just because I'm very curious. But anyways, so yeah, once we kind of figured out how we were gonna watch it, it's it still took a little bit. We were trying to figure out, everything's kind of slow, especially when you're setting up a series. You're trying to figure out, but they're kind of setting up, that he's kind of not great.
Oh,
down on his luck.
He started off as not a great person.
Yeah.
Stealing from his mom, and he's kind of like a deadbeat dad.
And he's like gambling, trying to earn. That's
have
how
a gambling addiction.
Yeah.
And so he starts off as not such a great character.
He owes people like tons of money, and so he's not great. But that's what leads him to like the Squid Games.
Yeah, and that's what ultimately leads to having such a great character arc, because his character ended so different than how his character started. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's always, if you go through a whole thing and like the character's pretty much the same at the end as he is at the beginning, it's like, well, was it even worth watching?
Well, then he's like a freaking like psychopath, because if you can go through the Squid Games and not change, well,
I feel like some of those characters in that game could have gone all the way through and still would have came out the other side the same. But yeah. So I mean, the episodes were good. Once we got into like the Squid Game, red light, green light.
Red light, green light, and they all realized like, oh, this is not what we had signed up for.
That wasn't such a big twist for us. I mean, I just kind of assumed that when they kept saying like eliminated and things like that, I just assumed that they were talking about they were just going to kill you.
I just kept thinking of the Daleks from Doctor Who.
So I know some people were kind of like first time watching it didn't really know what to expect, and when like people started dying, like they were almost as shocked as the players were in the game. But for me, I was just like, I just kind of assumed that,
that's
I was like, they're like kidnapping you, or they put you to sleep to take you there, offering you money to do all this stuff. They just keep saying like, if you lose, you're eliminated. And I'm just like, okay, well, they're gonna kill you. I'm like, so that wasn't that big of a surprise. So why everyone playing in those games were kind of shocked by it, I have no idea.
They were just, they wanted money and they weren't thinking.
And then the old man came out and he was just having the time of his life.
He was just enjoying himself like no other.
Biggest smile on his face, like he was in first for a bit, and he was just like trotting along, and I was like, "Come on, old man, like you gotta make it."
But yeah, so I mean, then obviously they leave. They all vote to leave, and then 93% of them come back.
Which that was actually kind of a surprise, especially when it came down to the old man having the last vote. I was like, he's enjoying having the games. He's dying of a brain tumor anyway. He's just going to vote to continue the game, so which makes sense because the story has to continue.
The end, and then you're kind of like, I kind of understand because he knew that people were going to come back and want to be there.
Yeah.
So.
But watching it initially, I was just like, well, like they're not just going to, like the show isn't just going to end right now. Like, so obviously they're going to continue on, and all of a sudden he voted no, and I was like, huh.
Yeah. I liked the old man, the main character, Ollie. That's the only one that I feel comfortable trying to pronounce.
I'm a big fan of Ollie, and we'll get to that point. But I'm very, very devastated by that episode, by the Marvel game.
Episode 6 was brutal. Like that one, I think, was the one out of any of the other ones where I was just like, oh. Now I'm actually kind of sad.
Like we all knew it was gonna get to that point eventually, but actually having it happen, especially, I mean, the old man. I mean, we're just kind of jumping ahead, but oh well. The old man being paired with the main character, I was like, okay, well, it's gonna be sad, but it makes sense that the main character should move forward. The old guy's old and he has brain tumor anyway, so even if he wins, like, he's gonna die, like, within a year or so anyway. So, like, it makes sense that, you know, we would want the main character to obviously be the one to move forward. But the whole Ollie and that guy's friend, like, the way he, like, screwed him over, and I was just like, wow.
Yeah.
Like,
I
wanted him to die so bad after that point. Like, I didn't even want him to make it past the bridge.
Yeah, it's like you. I wish I knew the characters' names.
I know.
And I could pronounce them without offending anybody. But, so yeah, the friend, the guy, his childhood friend, like, you don't like him because of the umbrella game.
Yeah, he kind of kept that to himself.
Because of the...
Because he knew what game they were going to play,
and
and, like, the main guy was like, I'm going to go stand by the umbrella, and he's like, why? And then he's like, I don't know, and then he's just like, okay, and, like, it didn't tell him anything.
Yeah,
like,
so then
wow.
you're like, well, man, I hate that guy. And then, like, he started to come around, like, where he, kind of was like, oh, shoot, like,
yeah,
I kind of almost screwed them all over. So he kind of started to turn around, and then he went right back. And then he was worse.
And then he went completely off the deep end.
Yeah.
Like, we'll get to that more later instead of just kind of skipping over everything
Well,
else.
I mean, we don't have to talk about each, specific thing about every
But
episode.
yeah, but then he just kind of, like, went off the deep end in that Squid Game. Like, he was going to be prepared to kill his childhood friend and wasn't even going to think anything of it.
And before that, he killed Sebyok. I may have just butchered her name, but her,
he pretended to be asleep, and then, like, she was, like, really, like,
she
bleeding
dying,
out anyway. And he was, so he goes over, bangs on the door to try to get help, and he's like, I'm going to pretend to be asleep, so when he does that, I'm just going to get up and go and, like, slice her throat, and I was just like, wow.
Yeah,
like,
so he was turned into,
I wonder what would have happened, though. Like, I don't know. Squid Game seems to be 2 teams, so how would you do a Squid Game with 3 people who aren't really on the same team? Like, each one of them is on their own team now. So I don't even know how that would happen. I mean, they would
the
need
old
one
man
of them
would have
to
come
die.
back in and been like, "What up, guys?"
2 against 2.
But yeah, so he, I know what his name is too, and I can't think what it is. Yeah, he was, just kind of a douche for me.
It's like the main guy was willing to, after all of that, still just be like, let's just end the games and be done with it. And I feel like the other guy would not have done that in that same position.
But I also think that that's also why he killed her, because he didn't want the games to end. Because he knew that the majority, if the 2 of them were like, okay, we want to stop, then he's like, no. So
he knew he had to kill everybody also, so it's just like...
Yeah, and she was already wounded and couldn't really, like, fight back, so,
And it's just like, yeah, he I feel like he wouldn't have done that if the places were reversed, and all the other guy had to do was just walk into that circle, and he wouldn't even have to have been the one to kill him. All he had to do was walk in the circle, and they would have shot him and been like, hey, my hands are clean, I didn't have to be the one to kill you. And it would have been done, but he turned around and was just like, let's just end the games. And then the guy at least did the noble thing there and was just like, I'm going to stab myself. Like,
yeah.
At least in the end,
the final game, the main character was like, hey, we could just end it right now. And he was just like, I have nothing to go back to. So, like, what's the point? So he, stabs himself in the neck. So he did kind of... at the very end, show some sort of...
Not enough to redeem him. I still hate him. But...
Yeah, no, I'm still not a fan of his. Episode 6 was the most brutal, like, I feel like emotionally, I mean, I wasn't, like, crying or anything, but, like, it was still, like, the saddest episode, losing Ollie, who was just so naive, and he was just so nice. And
hey, let's split up, and here's your marbles.
And as soon as they were like doing stuff on the dirt, I was like, he's not giving him the marbles. I was like, he's gonna give him some rocks or something. And then that's what it was.
Well, like Ollie handed him over before that. He was just like, oh, here, give me your pouch. And he's like, okay, like, and he still had one. And he's like, he put it away, like, here, let me get you your pouch. And then like, he was like, Ollie, he already had them all. Like, Ollie just handed them over. And I was just
but
like,
he needed Ollie to get away from him, so he could,
I know. I mean, that too. But it was just like, Ollie was just like so trusting even in that moment where he's just like, I have to have marbles to stay alive, but I'm going to hand you these because you're asking for them right now. And it's just like
and I trust you, and I'm so...
Yeah, and I'm just like... And like, he sent his family away and was like, oh, I'm going to follow you guys and like all that. And then like, just to go out like that and get shot in the back of the head. And I was just like, oh.
Yeah. And I mean, the really suspicious thing about episode 6 was when they didn't show the old man get shot. So, like...
I didn't really think anything of it when I was watching through it.
I mean, at the time, I was, like, glad because I didn't want to see it. But
with the benefit of hindsight, it's like...
Yeah, it's like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
The rule of thumb with shows like that is that if you don't actually see somebody die, then they didn't die.
Yeah.
Like Walking Dead, Game of Thrones, like anything where a lot of characters die throughout it, it's like if you didn't actually see them die... Then they didn't actually die. Yeah. Except for Stannis, he was the exception.
That's true, and I still believe he's alive. So, you know, but the series as a whole, I mean, there was a lot of predictable moments, so that was like one of the downsides.
There was. We were able to predict early on that
yeah, in the first episode, he was like, "Oh, the old man's behind all this, right?"
Well, I mean, yeah, I wasn't going to talk about that. Yeah, but on that first one, I was like, so like the old man, the one like running this whole thing, and she was like, "Well, how could he be?" Like, he showed the other guy like watching all them play, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, true," and then like at the end, I was like. But we also, like, we both kind of predicted probably around the same time that the masked guy who we thought was the main guy, who was just, like, the front man.
Just the front man, yeah. The front man was going to be the cop's brother.
Yeah, we're like, okay, so the front man is going to end up being the detective's brother. Then I was like, okay, well, yeah, that came true.
And since we didn't actually, I mean, we saw his brother get shot, the cop get shot, but it was only, like, in the shoulder. So
and then he fell off into the ocean. So he could be alive and back for season 2, maybe. You know? I hope that he kind of is, actually, because I feel like their story, if that's how their story ends, was just kind of a weird ending.
Yeah, like, well, and especially if there's a season 2 and it's like they're trying to take down, you know, the Squid Game. Like, I'd like to see the brothers going
now
at
kind
it.
of have now have like
kind of going
having
at
a little chip on your shoulder because they're like, you shot me.
So, but yeah, so there was definitely some predictable things. The downside of having like main characters in a show that's, you know, based on a lot of people dying is you're not, you know, it's like, you know, that they're gonna make it. Like, there was, you know, we
knew the main character like was gonna at least make it all the way up to the end.
If they had killed him in like episode 3, I would have been like, what?
then that would have been some real Game of Thrones where we're like, what's the rest of the show gonna be about?
You know, like, so there, you know, I knew he was going.
I didn't know he was necessarily going to win or how it was going to end, but at the very least, I knew he was going to make it to the final game. And then from there, I didn't necessarily know how it was going to play out. But yeah, so there, you know, and things like that, there is a certain level of predictability. Obviously, there was more in other areas of it as well. But I felt like that didn't really take away from the enjoyment because there still was a lot of intense moments throughout the episode, you know, throughout each episode, especially when they were playing the games on who was going to die, who was going to live, how many were going to be left, and things like that. How were they going to make it through these games? Because, you know, especially that bridge one had a lot of tension in it. I feel like not knowing, you know,
which one to step on, which glass to step on.
Yeah, that's.
And then they were all like, I'm just standing here. So
I'm just standing here. I'm not going to jump and risk my life.
Yeah, I mean, it started with just like somebody like random. He wasn't even like part of the main cast. Just like went and pushed the person in front of them. And then everybody was like,
oh, that's a strategy.
Why didn't we do that? Yeah.
And then that guy's like, I immediately regret that decision.
He's like, because now I'm in the front. And yeah.
But the good thing about that game was that the guy with the tattoo on his face and the annoying lady.
That lady. Died. So that lady. Her character was really annoying. That's all I can say about that. Like, she was just annoying. But I am glad that she took down the tattoo face guy, because he kind of screwed her over.
Multiple times, and
in more ways than one. Yeah. But yeah, so, you know, it was kind of like, you know, poetic justice, I guess, that, like, she was the one, like, she didn't care that she was going to die, too. She was just like, what up?
Like, as long as you die, too, I'm good with it.
Yeah, so, like, that was, you know, so that was good. You know, the weird thing about that game is that at the end, when all the glass, like, shoots up, and I'm like, were they trying to take out people after they crossed?
Yeah, because, I mean, what's her name? Got, you know, cleared the game, she was on the thing, and then she had like, a fatal injury because of the exploding glass and stuff. Yeah. And I was like, I'm sorry, like, she won. Like, she should get medical treatment now and be like, hey, like, I won this game, I shouldn't die from it, like...
They're like, we don't care, because you're allowed to be killed when they're not in a game by other people, and you're
well, yeah, but that's a little bit different, though. I mean, I feel like, to be fair, like, she won the game, though she shouldn't die from the game. If she dies from somebody else, I mean, that's just, you know, that's his life. But
yeah.
And then, it went from there. We already kind of talked about the final game, and then, so it shows him, he won. He's kind of, living life like he always did. He's not really spending any of his money. He's just kind of a shell of a person that he was, which, makes sense.
I feel like yes.
Because I feel like anybody who went through that, especially with somebody it's not even just like, it's a bunch of strangers. Like, you were literally going up against your childhood friend, and then he killed himself. So and then you made friends along the way. Like, he made friends with the old man. And
to Ollie and to Savyok. And
I mean, that's your first mistake. If you're in after the first game, and you know that like just for you to win, everyone else has to die. You don't make attachments with anybody.
I know.
That's just a recipe
when you're
for disaster.
forming alliances,
alliance, yes, like,
but that's hard to separate, though.
I feel like that's one thing that the tattoo face guy was at least getting right, was that even though he was like forming like a coalition and had his own little group of people that were working with him, he could care less if any of them died. That's how you have to approach it. I mean, yes, he was a terrible person, and I'm glad that he died within the realm of the game, but I feel like that's better than, all of a sudden, like, what if it was just him, Ollie, and the girl who were the final three? Like, they would have just ended the game, and it all would have been for nothing. Like, then none of them would have killed the other. And I mean, I don't know, the girl might have killed the other two.
I mean, who knows? She was,
But Ollie and the main guy would have both voted, and that would have been the majority to end it. And then it's like, you form all these bonds, and then at the end you're just like, well, I had to watch all these people die, and I am still poor. All right.
I know.
Yeah.
Especially, like, at the very end of the game, you're like, all right, let's quit. I would have been like, I've just seen, like, 500 people die. Like we're finishing this.
Somebody's getting the money, even if it's not me. Somebody's doing it.
We're finishing this. Like, I'm gonna be, I'm gonna have PTSD regardless. Like, if I'm in it or not, I might as well have the money and be rich.
Although, he didn't end up spending any of it anyway. He was just living like he was poor anyway. Yeah. So, to him, he was just like, what difference does it make? I'll
but he did eventually go and do, get his,
Get the sibling from the girl.
Yeah,
the pickpocketer.
out of
China, North Korea, somewhere. They were somewhere. They weren't in South Korea.
Well, I think the brother was, but the mom, I think, is in North Korea.
Oh, I thought the sibling was also not in South Korea either. I don't know. Maybe they were.
Because she went and visited him, like, at the orphanage.
Oh.
Yeah, so, and then,
And gave him all the money.
Well, gave him, like, I think his sister's share of, like, what would have been that money. He didn't give it all away, but he did give, like, them a lot. But he brought the boy to his friend's mom, who's, like, old, and I'm like, so how long is he gonna have, like, somebody to take care of him?
He's rich. He'll have a lot of people to take care of him.
I mean, yeah, I guess. But the ending of the series, they definitely left it open for a second season, and if there was never a plan to do a second season, then I would be like
upset that they ended it that way.
Yeah, if they were just like, this is a one and done, we're not doing a second season, and then that's how it ended, I would have been like, I would have just been like pissed and been like, what the, like, you have to.
He could have just gotten on the plane, and if it ended that way, I would have been like,
yeah, if he would have gotten on the plane, he was going to see his daughter, and like that could have just been the ending. But then when he turned around,
even if they didn't address the whole Squid Game thing, and even if we just assumed, oh, well, that's just going to continue on, it's like at least it would have been more of a closed story if he would have just been like, I'm putting that behind me. I'm just going to the U.S. I'm going to see my child. And, they were just going to go on with that. But the fact that he, like, called and was like, I'm pretty much did a Liam Neeson and, like, I don't know who you are, but I will find you.
Yeah.
I will kill you.
Yeah.
And then they, like, walked off, and I'm like, okay, well, now I have to see it. I have to see how it continues. Like,
yeah, so, I mean, I don't know if there's even been, like, an official pickup, but...
Just seeing, like,
there's going to be a second.
Yeah, like, Netflix is going to be like, we'll give, like, just... name your price. We will make it happen.
Yeah, so like that's if the creator wants it to happen.
Even if he doesn't, he could have sell it and just be like, here, you guys find somebody else to do it. Yeah, but I don't think
he would, just because it took him so long to get this made, and he has like an attachment to it. But yeah, so I mean, I think I read an interview where he had talked about if there was a second season. So I think would be on board.
He said, I think in the interview I read with him, he said that, he doesn't have anything in mind for season 2 right now, but that he's not necessarily, like,
opposed to the idea. Yeah.
He just wants to have help this time.
Yeah, because this time he wrote and directed every single episode. And that's insane. Like, props, dude, because that's a lot of work. But it also...
have a
made a very
continuity,
cohesive
yeah.
story, when one person is just writing it. But yeah, so we're gonna see what happens with.
We kind of skipped over the whole OTI death scene and all that.
Well,
but,
I mean,
he pretty much, she spilled his guts to him. He was a rich guy.
He was
the
the
old
one
guy
that
was a
did
rich guy who did everything, and
when you have so much money, you're
everything
never
else
happy.
everything else is just boring if you have all the money in the world to do everything.
I'm like, you know what? I'd like to live like that and see if that's true. That'd be nice.
So he's like, I know, I'm gonna go play in these death games to give my life a little excitement.
Yeah, I mean, I basically made the comparison that this is the Hunger Games and Rat Race, combined into one movie.
And that was also another predictive thing that we kind of predicted beforehand when they kept mentioning the VIPs, and we're like, okay, so it's just a bunch of rich people gambling on who wins, and which I mean that's not super that was. We really didn't want the audience to know about that. I feel like what else could it be? Why else would these people be here playing these games if there wasn't somebody betting on them? But at the end of the day, it was still just kind of okay, well, it was kind of obvious that that's what was happening, was that it was just a big bet for rich people.
Yeah. One thing before we finish was that I'd watched a video on how the first episode kind of predicted the deaths of everybody, of the main cast.
Oh, it was the second episode.
Was it the second episode?
Yeah, because that's the one where they, when they were
they left the games.
They left the games,
yeah.
And then what they did in that
the second episode. I can't remember.
Predicted,
when you binge watch, it's hard to separate episodes.
Yeah, the guy with the tattoo on his face. He jumped off of a bridge to save his life in that scene, and then he died by falling from a bridge. And the friend was going to kill himself, and then he did. And then the friend killed himself.
and then Sabyok, which I know I'm butchering that, but I'm just going to keep saying it. She threatened somebody with a knife to the neck.
To his throat, and
then
she got her.
And
then Ali was.
He stole
money from his boss, and then his friend stole the marbles from him.
Yeah.
And so that was actually kind of an interesting detail. That I did not even after the fact was not even really aware of.
We watched the video and I was like, huh. I was like, if I had watched back through the episodes,
I still don't know if I
might have, but that was actually just a really cool detail, a little bit of foreshadowing. So all in all, it was a good series. It was worth the watch.
And we look forward to season 2.
We've been talking about this for a while, so
it's gonna be the longest video in a long time.
Let us know what you guys thought of the series. Make sure to be on the lookout. I don't know when that Squid Game is coming in for us. It's another week or two, but so make sure you check out that, subscribe, and thank you for watching.